the commotion erupted without warning. A woman with a blonde bob haircut and designer sunglasses pushed her way through the crowd, shoving past pilgrims and tourists who had waited hours for a glimpse of Pope Leo XIII. "I have VIP access. Move! I know important people," she screamed, her voice echoing across St. Peter's Square as the Swiss guards stiffened their posture, halberds glinting in the May sunlight. "Do you know who I am? I paid for a premium tour. I demand to see the Pope now." The woman planted herself directly in the security corridor, blocking the path where Pope Leo XIV was scheduled to pass in just minutes for his first public audience since his historic election as the first American pontiff. Before we continue, if you enjoy stories about entitlement meeting swift justice, make sure to click that subscribe button. This is the best way for you to support our work. Thank you very much, and let's continue. Rome in May 2025 was unlike anything the Eternal City had seen in decades. The election of Cardinal Robert Prevost as Pope Leo XIV just 1 week ago had transformed the Vatican into the center of global attention. As the first American pope in the 2,000-year history of the Catholic Church, Leo XIV had drawn record crowds from around the world, particularly from his home country. Among those visitors was Catherine Winters, a 48-year-old real estate executive from Connecticut who considered herself a devout Catholic, though her understanding of devotion differed markedly from most. Catherine had booked what she believed was a platinum VIP experience through a third-party tour company that promised exclusive access to papal events. What the fine print actually explained, which Catherine hadn't bothered to read, was that her tour simply guaranteed a spot in a preferred viewing section, not the personal audience she had somehow convinced herself she'd paid for. The Swiss Guards of the Vatican, the world's smallest but possibly most distinctive military unit, had been on high alert since Pope Leo's election. Founded in 1506, these soldiers serve as the pontiff's personal protection force, their traditional blue, red, and yellow Renaissance-era uniforms belying their modern training in counterterrorism tactics and close protection protocols. Captain Lorenzo Beretta, a 10-year veteran of the Guards, had been assigned to oversee security for the Pope's first major public appearance since assuming the papacy. "Maintain formation," Beretta instructed his men in Italian as they positioned themselves along the route Pope Leo would travel. "We're expecting larger crowds than usual. Remember your training." What they weren't expecting was Catherine Winters. Catherine had separated from her tour group almost immediately upon entering Vatican City. The tour guide's explanation that they would be standing in a designated area with hundreds of others did not align with Catherine's expectations of VIP treatment. She had paid nearly $3,000 for this tour package, and in her mind, that entitled her to much more than what was being offered. "This is ridiculous," she muttered to herself as she slipped away from the group. "I didn't come all this way to be treated like some common tourist." Catherine had spent the morning navigating through Vatican security checkpoints by alternating between feigning confusion and flashing what she called her platinum access ticket, actually just her standard tour receipt, at various staff members. Through persistence and a remarkable talent for exploiting moments of chaos, she had managed to make her way much closer to the restricted areas than any regular visitor should have been able to reach. By the time she reached the security corridor, where the Swiss guards were stationed, Catherine had convinced herself that she was simply claiming what she had rightfully purchased. In her mind, the stern-faced guards in their colorful uniforms were merely decorative, historical curiosities rather than highly trained security professionals. "Excuse me," she called out, waving her tour receipt above her head. "I need to speak to someone about my VIP access. I'm supposed to meet the Pope." Captain Beretta noticed her immediately but initially assumed she would be deterred by the clear security perimeter and the presence of his men. When she instead ducked under the barrier rope and strode directly into the restricted pathway, his training kicked in. "Signora, halt immediately," he called out in accented but clear English, moving swiftly to intercept her. Catherine's response was to wave her paper more frantically. "Don't you senora me. I'm an American citizen and a Platinum VIP guest. I have rights. Where's your manager?" 2 junior guards moved into position, their synchronized movement reflecting years of disciplined training. They didn't aim their ceremonial halberds at her. That would have been an excessive response. But they did form a physical barrier between this unexpected intruder and the path the Pope would soon travel. "Madam, this is a restricted security area. You must return to the public viewing section immediately," one guard explained calmly but firmly. Catherine's face flushed red. "Do you have any idea who I am? I'm friends with Senator Richardson. I donate to the church every Christmas and Easter. I demand to see whoever's in charge here." By now, a small crowd had gathered at the edges of the security perimeter, murmuring and pointing as the confrontation unfolded. Several had their phones out, recording the incident. Catherine, noticing the attention, seemed to grow even more indignant, interpreting the audience as validation of her importance rather than as witnesses to her inappropriate behavior. "I paid for access to the Pope. This is theft. I'll sue the Vatican. I'll call the American Embassy." Her voice rose to a shrill pitch that carried across the square. Captain Beretta maintained his composure, having dealt with difficult visitors before, though few quite as belligerent as Catherine. "Madam, I am the commanding officer present. There is no manager to speak to. This is a security matter, not a customer service issue. You have entered a restricted zone without authorization, and you must leave now, or we will be forced to remove you." Catherine's response was to plant her feet more firmly and cross her arms. "I'm not going anywhere until I see Pope Leo. I came all the way from America to see him, and he's American too. He'll want to meet me." What Catherine failed to understand was that the Swiss Guards' ceremonial appearance did not reflect their actual function or capabilities. These were not actors in costume, but elite soldiers who had undergone rigorous selection and training. Every guard was a Swiss citizen who had completed basic military training in Switzerland, stood at least 5'8" tall, and was a single Catholic male between 19 and 30 years of age when recruited. They were experts in personal protection and had sworn an oath to defend the Pope with their lives if necessary. Captain Beretta gave a subtle hand signal. 2 additional guards appeared at Catherine's sides, moving with quiet efficiency. "This is your final warning," Beretta stated. "Return to the public area voluntarily, or we will escort you there." Catherine's response was to attempt to push past them, an action that crossed the line from verbal confrontation to physical resistance. "Get your hands off me! Don't you dare touch me! I'm an American!" What happened next occurred with such swift precision that many observers later described it as almost balletic in its execution. The 4 guards moved simultaneously, smoothly, but firmly taking control of Catherine's arms and shoulders. There was no excessive force, no dramatic takedown, just the practiced technique of security professionals who had trained extensively for exactly this type of situation. "What are you doing? This is assault. I'll have your jobs for this," Catherine shrieked as they efficiently guided her away from the security corridor, her feet barely touching the ground as they moved her. Father Thomas Jenkins, an American priest from Chicago who happened to be standing nearby, later described the scene. "Those guards were something else, completely professional. The woman was causing a scene that could have escalated, but they handled it with remarkable restraint. Firm, but not excessive." Within moments, Catherine found herself being escorted not to a VIP meeting, but to a small security office at the edge of Vatican City. Her protests had not diminished, but they were now contained where they wouldn't disrupt the papal appearance or affect the experience of the thousands of respectful visitors who had come to see Pope Leo XIV. In the security office, Catherine was met by Vatican Police Inspector Marco Rossi, who had been alerted to the situation. Unlike the Swiss guards in their Renaissance uniforms, Rossi wore the modern blue uniform of the Corps of Gendarmerie of Vatican City, the actual police force responsible for law enforcement within the Vatican. "Please take a seat, Miss Winters," Rossi said calmly, consulting the passport the guards had retrieved from her purse during the escort. "I understand there's been some confusion about your visit today." "Confusion? Those costumed thugs assaulted me. I want to speak to the American embassy immediately. I have rights." Catherine remained standing, her designer handbag clutched tightly against her chest. Inspector Rossi maintained his professional demeanor. "You entered a restricted security zone despite multiple warnings, Ms. Winters. That's not a matter of confusion, but a violation of clear security protocols. The Swiss guards acted according to their duty to maintain the Pope's security perimeter. I paid for VIP access." Catherine thrust her crumpled tour receipt toward the inspector. $3,000. Rossi glanced at the document. "This appears to be a standard tour package from a third-party company. It provides access to a preferred viewing section, not a personal contact with His Holiness. The Vatican doesn't offer the type of VIP access you're describing." For the first time, a flicker of uncertainty crossed Catherine's face. "But the website said..." "I suggest you review the terms of your purchase more carefully," Rossi replied. "Regardless, no tour package would authorize breaching security barriers or entering restricted areas." Meanwhile, outside in St. Peter's Square, Pope Leo XIV had emerged to greet the faithful, completely unaware of the incident that had just occurred. The crowd erupted in cheers as the 69-year-old pontiff, known for his warm smile and humble demeanor, waved to the gathering. Born in Chicago to a family with French, Italian, and Spanish heritage, Leo had spent much of his career as a missionary in Peru before being elevated to cardinal in 2023. His election as pope had been seen as bridging the Americas, bringing together North and South in a way that reflected the global nature of the modern Catholic Church. "Peace be with all of you," the Pope addressed the crowd in Italian, his first language despite his American birth. He would later switch to Spanish and Latin during his address, languages he had mastered during his years of service in Peru and at the Vatican. Back in the security office, Catherine's bluster had begun to deflate as the reality of her situation sank in. Inspector Rossi had explained that she had several options. She could be formally charged with trespassing in a restricted area and creating a public disturbance, or she could agree to leave Vatican City immediately with an official warning. "But I spent so much money to be here," she said, her voice smaller now. "I just wanted to see the Pope up close." "That desire is shared by millions," Rossi replied. "But security protocols exist for everyone's safety, including His Holiness." The Swiss guards weren't being difficult. They were doing their job. As Catherine sat there, the sound of cheering could be heard even through the thick walls of the security office, the faithful celebrating Pope Leo's appearance. She had missed it entirely because of her own behavior. In a rare moment of self-reflection, Catherine felt a wave of embarrassment wash over her. The image she had projected, of entitlement, of expecting special treatment, of disrespecting both security personnel and the thousands of other visitors who had followed the rules, suddenly seemed painfully clear. I didn't realize," she said quietly. "Few do in the moment," Rossi replied, not unkindly. "The question is what you'll take from this experience going forward." Catherine chose to accept the warning and leave without further incident. As she was escorted to the exit of Vatican City, she caught a glimpse of the back of Pope Leo's white-robed figure in the distance, surrounded by the faithful and guarded by the very Swiss guards she had tried to bypass. One of those guards was Captain Beretta, who had returned to his post after ensuring Catherine was properly transferred to Inspector Rossi's custody. As he stood at attention, his eyes constantly scanning the crowd for any potential threats, he reflected on the incident. It wasn't the first time someone had tried to breach security out of a misplaced sense of entitlement, and it wouldn't be the last. But the Swiss guards would always be there, maintaining their centuries-old tradition of protecting the Pope, whether from genuine threats or from those who simply couldn't accept that rules applied to them too. The following day, a video of the incident went viral on social media. Captured on a tourist's phone, it showed Catherine's confrontation with the Swiss guards and her swift removal from the scene. The internet quickly dubbed her Vatican Karen, and the hashtag #Swiss guards not playing trended for days. The video reached Sister Maria Constanza, a nun who served as social media coordinator for the Vatican's communication office, a position created by Pope Francis years earlier and expanded under Pope Leo XIV's directive to engage with modern communication platforms. Sister Maria had a decision to make. Should the Vatican comment on the viral video or let it fade away naturally? After consultation with her superiors, she crafted a simple post for the Vatican's official accounts. The Swiss guards have protected the pontiff for over 500 years with dignity, professionalism, and restraint. Their service remains a blessing to the Church and all visitors to the Holy See. The message was diplomatic yet clear, supporting the guards' actions without directly addressing the specific incident. The post itself went viral, with many praising its tactful handling of the situation. For Catherine Winters, the experience proved transformative in ways she hadn't anticipated. Returning to her hotel room after being escorted from Vatican City, she found herself tagged in social media posts featuring the video of her confrontation. Seeing herself through others' eyes, the entitlement, the disrespect, the assumption that rules didn't apply to her, triggered something unexpected: genuine self-examination. That evening, she sat alone in her hotel room, the sounds of Rome drifting through her window, and wrote 2 letters. The first was to the Swiss guards, apologizing for her behavior and acknowledging their professionalism. The second was to herself, promising to reflect on the attitudes and assumptions that had led her to this moment of public humiliation. 3 days later, Catherine attended a general audience in St. Peter's Square, this time standing quietly among the regular crowd, following all protocols. When Pope Leo XIV passed nearby, offering blessings to the faithful, she found herself moved to tears. Not because she had achieved some VIP experience, but because she had opened herself to the actual meaning of the moment, shared with thousands of others. Captain Lorenzo Beretta happened to notice her in the crowd that day. He had an excellent memory for faces, an essential skill in security work, but this time, Catherine wasn't causing a disturbance. She stood respectfully with clasped hands, her expression reflective rather than demanding. He gave a nearly imperceptible nod of acknowledgement before returning his attention to his primary duty: protecting Pope Leo XIII. As the Pope concluded his audience, offering a final blessing to the gathered faithful, Catherine joined in the response with a new understanding: that true importance comes not from demanding special treatment, but from being part of something larger than oneself. The Swiss guards had taught her that lesson not through words, but through their quiet, firm dedication to purpose and principle. Back in the United States a week later, Catherine found the envelope containing her apology letter returned to her home address. Inside was a brief note on Vatican stationery: "Apology accepted. Grace and peace to you. Captain L. Beretta, Swiss Guard." She framed it as a reminder that sometimes our most important lessons come from those moments when someone finally shows us that the world doesn't revolve around our demands, a lesson the Swiss guards had delivered with professional clarity. And in Vatican City, life continued as it had for centuries. The Swiss guards maintained their watch. Pope Leo XIV carried forward his ministry with the humble strength that had characterized his lifelong service, and thousands of visitors each day were welcome to experience the beauty and history of the Holy See, provided, of course, that they respected the boundaries set for everyone's benefit. For Captain Beretta and his men, the incident became just another brief chapter in the Swiss Guard's long history of service. They neither sought nor needed public validation for simply doing their duty. Their colorful uniforms might catch the eye, but it was their unwavering commitment that truly defined them. A commitment tested and proven daily, whether in quiet moments of vigilance or in those rare instances when someone needed to be reminded that even in the age of entitlement, some boundaries remain firmly intact. In the end, the lesson was simple but profound. The Swiss Guards aren't there to play. They're there to serve, and in that distinction lies all the difference between entitlement and true dignity.